What is going on, Wolfpack Nation? Welcome to another episode of the Tuffy Talk live show. Obviously, this is a little bit of a different setup as, you know, this is Wednesday evening instead of Monday evening like we usually do it. But obviously with the holidays and obviously wanted to even to maybe get a little bit closer to that bowl game is, I mean, obviously that's going to definitely be the topic of discussion for sure. And so now with us being less than 48 hours, basically about 40 hours away from kickoff, you know, what a perfect time to finally get this game going. And obviously joined today by Ryan Williams from Inside Pack Sports. What's up, Ryan?
What's going on, man? Appreciate being back.
Hey, man, always love having you, man. Appreciate it. Now, I will say, I will be 100% public right now. Obviously, a lot of people listening right now might be, or watching right now might be wondering, or, you know, waiting for, where's Macon, where's Greg, where's Mackenzie, where's Michael? But all four of them are actually busy this week with holiday stuff. And I know Greg is actually driving down right now to Charlotte for the bowl game. So, you know, they're all busy. So, I mean, I will be honest. I reached out to my man, Ryan, because we've had Ryan on plenty of times before. And I always love having him on. And so, you know, hey, the show goes on, right? We got to make it happen. Can't let the weekly live show go to tradition go away. So with that being said, though, got to give a shout out first of all to Great Day Tar Heel, already in the comments saying going live as we're about to kick off. Absolutely, Great Day Tar Heel. That is the point. Hey, we figured, hey, what a perfect time to go live. Then, you know, right when UNC is about to get, I mean, in my opinion, curb stomped by Oregon. But, you know, I mean, I think it's going to be a high scoring game. I wouldn't be surprised if the final score is like 60-35 or something like that. I mean, I think it's gonna blow the total out of the water. But yeah,
and Oregon's got Bo Nix back, so it'll be a fun game.
Yeah, and it's pretty much a home game for Oregon too. So, but anyway, so with that being said, if you're tuning in with us, if you've been with us for, you know the drill. But if you haven't, just as a reminder, make sure to send us a comment. Let us know at least who's here with us, and also too, if you want to ask any questions, give any thoughts as well, feel free to put in the comments as well, and we'll make sure to get to most of them, as I know that we probably won't have as big of a crowd as we used to do, just because of the fact that, again, this is a Wednesday night instead of typical Monday night. So, which is fine, which means that we will just get to every comment that we get. So, with that being said, Greg Legg is actually was actually in the comments saying "Let's go." So, Greg, I'm sure is tuning in, listening, hopefully not watching, as well. I know his wife typically usually likes to drive more, but we'll see about that. But anyway, Ryan, so thoughts. Obviously, NC State, number 23 versus Maryland, Friday afternoon, 12 p.m. in Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte. We actually just did our giveaway for 2 tickets, so make sure to stay tuned for that. If you're selecting, congratulations. We will do that right after we get done here. But immediate thoughts, Ryan. I mean, I think to me, this kind of sets up as a smash for NC State, just because, I mean, I know that reading some of the previews, a lot of previews are saying, well, both NC State and Maryland have been absolutely, derailed by a bunch of transfers that are leaving the program. And with Maryland, I would agree with that. With NC State, though, I'm like, a little bit, but not really, actually. I mean, we haven't really gotten, I mean, it's definitely not one of the better or worse, scenarios that you see in college football right now.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things, man. So I checked it. I'm not sure if this is like the official number of any more has been added, but I saw Maryland had like 14, 15 dudes into the portal. And now if they're starters and impact players, that's a different story. But for State, I think it's from the outsider, like analyst standpoint, you can see Leary leaving, you're like, oh crap. You can see Carter leaving, you're like, oh crap. But the reality is like, we really didn't lose our guys. Leary's been out. You're still going to have Morrison, Finley. You're going to lose Carter, but the way they rotate the receivers, I mean, you still have Jones on the one side. You're going to have Lassane on the outside. So, I mean, it doesn't really hit hard. I was looking at Maryland's roster and seeing how they're having sit out. And surprisingly, they're very similar to State, where, I mean, they're not really going to have anyone stand out or sit out. And it was funny. I was talking to one of my buddies, and like, with the new way that the college football season is and how players are, I expected a bunch of guys to sit out the bowl, like Drake, Peyton, and guys like that have a chance at the next level. But from what I'm hearing and seeing, it doesn't seem like State's going to have any dudes sitting out. Baker Williams, he just announced, he's going to the draft. I think he's sitting out. I don't think he's going to play. And he's been battling injury issues. So I don't even know if he was going to be one of those that were going to go anyway or play anyway. But as it stands, I don't see anyone really sitting out for State. So, I mean, for me, that's exciting because football in December is fun to talk about, which is why we're here. And we're going to have a full team, because I remember going down to Jacksonville when we had Pratt sit out, we had Harmon sit out, and you're like, oh my God, all of our main dudes are not here. And then this year, you think about it, we have supposedly everyone playing, and they've had a month to get healthy, essentially. Right. So I'm like, okay, now I'm ready for football, because it's not just like a pick a player here and there to play and fill in. I mean, you're going to have your guys playing. So, I mean, it'd be exciting.
Yeah. Well, and on top of it too, I mean, I think that for me, one of the most exciting things is, I think that a lot of players are really bought into. I mean, this is a big game for State, for sure. I mean, to really, kind of put the stamp, the exclamation point on the end of the season. I know obviously the season, in general hasn't gone to the high standards that a lot of fans had, including us. I mean, obviously us Tuffy Talk, we were the ones saying, 11-1, and we were like, definitely didn't quite get that. But, to end the season, I mean, I remember that with O'Brien, one of the pretty much the reason why most State fans said that he's, going to stick around is because he got to a bowl game and he beat Carolina. Yeah. Well, basically meaning that, I mean, if you beat Carolina, that makes a whole lot of things look a whole lot better. And especially the fact that we were able to beat them in their own field with a Heisman quarterback against our third or fourth string, whatever you want to look at it, quarterback. I mean, it's such a sweet ending, and it would be even more sweet on top of it to beat an old ACC foe in Maryland, who unfortunately we weren't able to send them out with the L that we were trying to give them back in 2013, but we just didn't have the boys to do that back in 2013, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's going to be a packed house for NC State for sure. And the one thing as well to keep in mind is that I know Maryland is not playing with at least their top two wide receivers, if not three. And on top of it, they lost their star tight end who transferred to Alabama as well. So, I mean, I think that Maryland's going to have to rely a lot on the run game more than they have this season, which is our strength. So that's why, to me, I feel like that it's a win for us. And also, I think guys like Julian Gray have been waiting their turn, which, I know from pretty much every single publisher throughout NC State, whether it's the Wolfpacker, Inside Pack Sports, Pack Pride, whatever, was saying preseason, like Julian Gray, like he is going to be involved. Like he has been impressive, and he just hasn't really been involved much this season. But hey, what a perfect time to get him involved. And with Devin Carter being gone, and I think Daryl Jones, like this is going to be a statement game for him too. So but the biggest question though, Ryan, and again, I know that this is kind of an interesting thing, and we all know that Doran loves holding his cards close to his chest, but I just don't see any reason why, because Doran said publicly that MJ is healthy. He's been practicing. Would it make sense at all for him to not play? Would it make sense at all for Ben Finley to play over MJ if MJ is healthy?
I think you would hold out MJ if it was a thing of where you're worried about him doing more damage
Right.
to what was done. But if it's one of those things where he's healed, he's out there fully practicing. The kind of understanding is that he'll be able to play, but it's going to be you're going to have Roper calling the shots. So it's like, it's going to be one of those weird situations because yes, he can play and obviously Finley can too.
Yep.
But I think from like a medical standpoint, you need to assess if it's one of those things where if he gets hurt, you could do it even, make it even worse for him because you hate to, re-aggravate an injury, possibly make it worse than it was before. And then, you don't have him for the spring. And then he's coming in during the summer, and then he's getting summer reps as opposed to a whole year.
Right.
So, the offense is going to be interesting. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I would expect to see both quarterbacks at some capacity.
Hey, why not just throw in Jack Chambers and let's just do, continue the carousel that we've seen this season. So,
it's frustrating to watch, but it's like, I think they're just going to hope that, it was Finley's game a once in a career thing, or is it like a continuity of how he's playing? Like, is he going to play the same way, on Friday, or was it a one game wonder kind of deal?
Right. No, absolutely. Well, because I think with Finley, first of all, I think to me, if MJ was borderline considering playing against UNC, I would assume that he's probably 100% a month after that game. But that'd be my first thought. But second of all, I would say that, and we're going to kind of get to this too, but obviously, the talks about Brandon Armstrong is definitely a big, big piece right now for NC State. But for MJ, every rep counts. And again, that's the one thing which I think a lot of fans may forget, but I think that a lot of coaches might say first benefit being that just kind of the team bonding experience, like the guys got to go, to the Charlotte Speedway and do the race cars and got to go, bowling, got to do charity stuff, which is amazing. But second thing I would say the benefit is the extra reps, because keep in mind that if you don't go to a bowl game, you're done. You can't practice anymore. You're shut down. And so to have the reps, I feel like that with MJ, with a young quarterback like MJ, why wouldn't you give him the reps if he was able to? And I know there's always the worry of, well, what about something long-term? But, I just don't really know, and again, it really just depends. Again, I know Doran loves holding those cards close to the chest, but, I'm just not really bought on that. If they sat him out due to preventing long-term, I would kind of be a little bit, okay, interesting. But again, it just comes down to as well. I think that from a recruiting standpoint too, to win in Charlotte, to win inside your home state, to win inside a recruiting, plethora like Charlotte, North Carolina, I think would be big for recruiting as well. I know that NC State practiced at Providence Day, I think it was, which is has I think 4 different 4-star recruits. They have a 5-star recruit there. So I mean, all the benefit to pull out W and go to recruits like, hey, you know, just
Yeah,
saying.
and that's one of the things too, man. Is I feel like Dorn finally needs to get his bowl game win, right? So you dropped the last two in Jacksonville. You didn't get to play the Holiday Bowl. So it's like you're getting to these bowl games, but you need to win them. Like if I'm not wrong, I think the last one we actually had a win was against Vanderbilt. If I'm not mistaken, I may be wrong.
Arizona State in the Sun Bowl.
Yeah.
So 2017.
Right. So I mean, it's been a while. And obviously COVID impacted that, and then COVID really impacted for 2 straight years.
Right.
So I think it's one of those things you just need to get a win, right? So you came out of that Holiday Bowl, you're talking like you won the game. Got all these guys back because of it. So it's like you need to just go out there and win the game. Like you need to win the bowl game. I don't care like what it is, where you're at, but it's like I feel like Dorn just needs to get that. And plus I'm pretty sure he gets like a nice little bonus too if he wins the bowl game. So
yeah. Well, and I know too, I think it's once he gets 8 wins, each additional win is a certain amount of bonus as well. But also too, I mean, because I'm looking at it here, and if he wins this game, it'll be his 4th 9-win season in the last 6 years, which is unbelievable to say the least, for sure. Because
I was saying, you think about it too. I mean, isn't like the last 4 years? I mean, it's not like he's had a complete team the whole 4 years.
No.
Even this year, like look how many guys were hurt. Leary was hurt, and it's like last year, you were basically down to your 2nd, 3rd string defense in spots. And it's like, I mean, he's doing it when we shouldn't be doing it, which is crazy to me. So it's like you're getting what you're paying for with Doran kind of deal. Because it's like, there's been a lot of times, being a State fan when you're like, we shouldn't be winning. And it seems like the last 2-3 years, whatever, State's been winning when we shouldn't win. And it's like, I always tip my cap to Doran because it's like, as State fans, we've wanted to get those wins. Now, granted, we shouldn't have lost to Boston College, but you beat ECU, you beat UNC, like games you shouldn't win, Florida State, Virginia Tech. Yep. But at the end of the day, end of the season, those are wins.
Absolutely. Well, again, because that's the thing that bugs me too. And again, I know that, the saying is it's better to be lucky than good. And, a lot of, whether you talk to ECU or UNC fans say, NC State's lucky just because, we didn't have a good kicker and we missed the kicks. And that's the reason why y'all won. And I always say at the end of the day, and this is like whenever people talk about referees, whenever they talk about one play, that at the end of the day, it's a 60-minute football game, like there's 150, 150 plays, whatever it may be, in a game, like, it's not going to come down. You didn't win or lose a game because of one play. Simple as that. I mean, ECU, they put up a heck of a run there at the end. And should we have lost that game? Yes, but at the end of the day, they didn't. Why? Because ECU was slow to get on the gas pedal, and they didn't take advantage when our offense was given them plenty of opportunities to do so. That's all I'm saying. And then same thing with UNC. I mean, we came out and punched them in the mouth early, and then just held on for dear life all the way through the win, and UNC just didn't take advantage. And I mean, gosh forbid, they tried everything they could. All the way to the last second of regulation to hang in there. So, which, hats off to them for that. But then I say that on that day, the better man won. I truly do say that. I think NC State deserved to win that game, and they won. So good for them. I think that, looking back at the Holiday Bowl last year, I talked to multiple people who said there was no doubt we were going to win that game. Like it was just go ahead and put it in. Everybody was so sold on getting that 10th win. I've heard that it was some of the best practices in Doran's tenure. Like everybody was so focused and dialed in and ready to win, and it was going to happen. And so that's why, to me, I even take it more as a win in the record books than maybe most, because I mean, there's no doubt from the people I talked to. I'm like, yeah, no, they were going to win. It was no doubt about it whatsoever. So I want to get to some of the comments here. So first of all, Squidhead 123 says bittersweet. Tyler Baker Williams is going into the draft, hoping for the best for him. And I think for this, Ryan, I mean, obviously, Tyler Baker Williams has been one, if not the best defensive back we've had over the last probably 2 or 3 seasons, honestly. I know PFF at least has absolutely loved him for sure. I think he was actually a second team All ACC last year. And I think if he was, healthy for more games this year, he probably would be, just that, if not higher this year, even as well. But I mean, a senior who's definitely had issues with injuries, had surgery during spring this past earlier this year. Do you kind of see this as more just kind of saying hey, listen, I've put together plenty of tape. I've done well. There's definitely an injury concern there for sure that I'm going to go and see what I can get in the NFL or whatever it may be, and try and cash in a little bit. Do you kind of see that this is kind of that kind of a move here?
Yeah, and I mean, too, you got to take his age into account, right? I mean, the dude's been there like what 5-6 years.
I think he came in
So
2017. Yeah.
yeah, he's been there a long time. So it's
Yeah.
like, you get to a point where you're like, oh, I'm going to keep doing this kind of deal. Like I'm ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too is like you mentioned some of the injuries because he missed a good amount of games this year with
Mm-hmm.
injury. He would try to battle through some, and then he couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, really, it's in his best interest to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, I would love to have him back. I think maybe he had 1 year left.
Sure.
Even then, he's been there for so long. It's like it doesn't even seem like he would have that extra year kind of deal. So, and I think that's happened with a lot of these COVID guys. It's like you're giving these guys extra years, and they graduate, and then they're having to stay there an extra year with graduation, and it's just like they're like, I'm ready to go kind of deal. And it's nothing to the players, the coaches, but at the same time, it's like you got to do what's best for you kind of deal.
Right. No, absolutely. Well, and also too, I think that with the amount of defensive back talent that we do have, combined with that, we've gotten a couple even in the transfer portal as well. It's like, hey, not that we don't need you. We would love to have them for sure. But then the day, it's like, hey, listen, we're good. We're good. You're not leaving us high and dry or anything like that. Like you've done your time, you've done your work, you've done, what it takes. And so, it's time for you to get out. And so I also kind of get to why he, because so is it confirmed that he is sitting out of the bowl game?
It's not confirmed that he's sitting out. He didn't say specifically that he's sitting out, but
right.
If were to be a guessing or a betting man, I would bet he's not going to play. Just because he's been dealing with injuries. Now, of course, I may be wrong, but I do not foresee him playing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, especially too, just like you said. I mean, because it's not this is definitely a guy that has that the last thing he needs is something just to come out, that will keep him out of preparing for the NFL draft. That will just absolutely kill any kind of draft stock that he has. At the end of the day, for a game that UNC was like we really need to win that game. Like then losing to Maryland would not be a backbreaker. Let's put it that way. It would be a bummer for sure because I think this is a game that's setting up for us beautifully. But then it's not going to be a backbreaker like UNC, definitely, would have in terms of beating UNC versus losing to UNC is a big difference. Huge difference between those two.
You get to the bowl game and then fans wouldn't care. And then, I mean, the players would care. I'm not saying that.
Right.
But it's like
absolutely.
from a fan standpoint, you're like, we lost to UNC. We got all these guys leaving, and then it sucks. I mean, obviously fans are going to still support, but it would. I mean, the same thing as last year if we lost to UNC. Same thing if we lost to ECU this year. And as like going back to what we're talking to, I mean, you just win those games, and it's such a switch in fan engagement because it's like you imagine, we lose to UNC last year, and then you get all this hype for this year just to lose to ECU. People are gonna be like, "What's going on, Dorn?" It's gonna be a whole different attitude, and then it's an uphill battle from there. But kind of like last year, you beat UNC. This year, you beat UNC. You got a lot of momentum running into the bowl game. So it's like it would suck if you lose a bowl game, but if you go on and win it, then it's like the ultimate topper, right? You had a great early signing day class, a lot of exciting guys signed. You still have a young core coming back. Can still make some hits in the transfer portal. So then you just keep that momentum riding into spring ball.
Yep, absolutely. And Ben coming in here saying I got to get Tobias Palmer on the show one time. Don't worry, Ben. That is actually in the the works right now. So stay tuned for that. But getting back to it too, as well, let's go ahead also to points out the news about Drake Thomas going to the draft, but deciding to play.
Mhm.
And again, this is something which again we'll definitely talk more about here. Definitely got a lot to talk about here on the show, but that's the thing I love, really more than anything, being a former football equipment manager. So, I really do feel that I was a part of this team just as much as anybody else. At the end of the day, I mean, I put in stupid hours, stupid blood, sweat, and tears into helping these guys. And because of my love for NC State, obviously, I mean, I started to, daggone YouTube channel for NC State. So obviously, my love is there for sure. But I mean, it really just comes down to, I mean, that it's a team effort, like, for sure. And so the thing which I love more than anything, honestly, is seeing how much everybody, every coach, every player has absolutely bought into this program. There's no doubt about it. Everything you've seen from this post-game celebrations after beating UNC, how hard they fought against UNC, from bouncing back, from losses against Boston College and Louisville to doing that, seeing the amount of guys that stuck around, seeing the amount of guys that did not. I mean, we only had three players enter the transfer portal, if I'm not mistaken. Josh Harris, Devin Leary, and Devin Carter. Anybody else? So I mean, again, only three. I mean, players into the transfer portal. I mean, that's unheard of in today's environment, with the amount of money being thrown around to these players, the amount of opportunities being thrown around to these players. I mean, the evidence is mind-boggling. That, I mean, it's just you can't argue otherwise that the culture here at NC State is in an elite level, where maybe 1% of programs in the country have this much of a strong, healthy culture. Simple as that. I mean, there's no arguing it. But I mean, going back to, again, Drake Thomas, a guy that has had a great season this year. He had a great season last year, but I would say this dude has been unbelievable this year for sure. I think he got snubbed definitely in some postseason voting for sure. But I mean, for being a guy that was a borderline, ACC player, the defensive player of the year candidate, to not even making first team, all I see was definitely like a, really? Come on now. Like that's crap. So for him to choose to play, I think says a lot. I mean, it really does, to see that the mission's not done. I'm sending us out with a 9-win season with wins over UNC, Duke, and ACC foe Maryland, which would be, hey, that sounds beautiful. I like the sound of that.
Well, it's funny. I remember, I think it was last year around this time when we were talking about bowl games, we were talking about Sam Howell. And I remember you asking me if you thought he was going to play. You asked me if I thought he was going to play. They're playing in the freaking, I think it was the MAYO Bowl against South Carolina. And I was like, man, there's no way he's playing, man. He's been hurt. He's been banged up. He has an NFL future. And then sure enough, he went out there and played. And it's like, I don't like UNC at all, but it's like, I have respect for players like that. Now, I'm not in a position to say, hey, you should play or you shouldn't play. But it's like, when you have guys like Drake that they know they have an NFL future, they know they have a pro career, but they're going out there and playing for their guys, for their coaches. I mean, from a fan standpoint, it's awesome. I mean, obviously we get to watch them one more time, but then when you dig in deeper, it's like, okay, like, this is the culture we've wanted, kind of deal. It's like you have guys being bought in, and then I think as fans, they've bought in as well. And it just it's nice seeing that continuation, and hopefully no ill will, but I mean, it's like, it's nice to see these guys play.
Absolutely. And Greg mentions in the comments too, reminding us that backup quarterback QB Zoe Wallace entered the transfer portal as well. So yes, thank you, Greg. That dude's got all kinds of information. He's hilarious. But anyway, so I guess that's kind of the good thing about him, just kind of sitting there watching the cars. He can be kind of our fact checker behind us here, Ryan. So but yeah, I mean, I think for me, like, because the one thing I think about whenever I think about players sitting out of bowl games for NFL draft status, and not to point this guy out, not to have an issue with it necessarily per se, but it just worked out this way. And so now and that one person is Kelvin Harmon, because of the fact that he sat out to the Gator Bowl, to preserve his draft stats, where maybe ended up getting drafted maybe in the 7th round, if not even going as a free agent. And so after the draft, I'm basically sitting there going, we could have really used him in the bowl game. I'm just saying. I mean, I'm sure that he probably would have gotten drafted exactly where he did get drafted, whether he played or not played. You know, so I mean, obviously, what's the saying? You can't always, hindsight's always 2020. There we go. That's the phrase I was thinking of. But that's my thing. Is like, like with Sam Howell, that guy had an NFL future, but I also know too that, I mean, obviously he's playing, in front of his home crowds. I'm sure that probably had a lot to do with it as well. But I mean, to me, I mean, unless you're like a top 2 or 3 round guarantee, like that dude is going to be a high draft pick. He is going to get signed for a good bit amount of money before he even steps on, the field, an NFL field. Then fine, I can get that. But at the end of the day, it's like I always think about that, just because, not to necessarily say that would have made a difference, but it definitely could have if Kelvin Harmon would have played in that game. I'm just saying.
Yeah, because what was it, Texas A&M we were playing?
Right.
I mean, and then you finally go up against some SEC talent. And if I'm not mistaken, that was one of the first years where people were starting to sit out. It was kind of like
the first person was Jadeveon Clowney back in 2014, but yeah, like 17, 18 is when it really started to kind of gain momentum. Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know if it was that whole kind of wave, but yeah, it's like one of those tough things, because it's like you can't tell a player what to do, and at the same time, it could have been one of those things where he went 6th, 7th round, whichever one it was, but he could have had an agent in his ear being like, "Hey, you could go 3rd, 4th round," kind of deal. So it's always so tough to gauge, because we don't get to hear who's telling him what and what's behind closed doors. So, but it's like, we're like, man, you need to get out there and play, kind of deal. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. Just my always thing is, I mean, if somebody was telling him, high point, you can go 3rd or 4th round, it's like, well, that's still best case scenario. Even if that's best case scenario, like, more likely that means you probably get drafted in the 5th or 6th rounds. Like, is that still enough draft capital to keep me out of also too playing in a big game on ESPN against a SEC team, where if I can go out there and have, I don't know, 6 catches for, 80, 90 yards or whatever and a touchdown. Well, okay, well, that's some great tape. That's some great additional tape. And all the NFL scouts are going to see that too. So you also look at it as, I mean, it's an opportunity as well, not only just for you to play for your school and get a big win over SEC team, but also too for yourself as well. It's, I mean, because I think that's what in my head, I'm always going to think about with Devin Carter. Now, obviously, Devin Carter, I thought that when I thought he was going to the draft, but now that he's in the transfer portal, I'm like, that's definitely a head scratcher for sure. And I do want to ask you, I mean, I know, obviously, a lot of your stuff might be inside information for sure, but that one doesn't make sense to me. I don't get that. Is that just kind of a new offense thing, new quarterback thing? I mean, don't feel pressed to share too much if you can, but I just don't understand that. I didn't really understand that move.
I think to me, it makes perfect sense, because everyone thought he was leaving last year.
Right.
And then they convinced him to come back. And I mean, maybe I'm a guy that's reading it wrong, but I felt like his body language all year on the field was completely different. Now, when we're out there at summer camp at the beginning of the year, he's still involved and happy with the guys. And then he gets out there on the field during the season, and it looks like he don't even want to be out there. Now, I mean, granted, I could be reading that completely wrong. I'm not saying that's what it is. It could always be, Joker has a certain way that he rotates his receivers. And he could always be getting frustrated with that, because, sometimes it's hard to get into a rhythm if you're cycling receivers out. So we went back talking about Morse and getting extra reps. It's all timing. So there could be timing off on the route. So if you're constantly cycling receivers, Rooks is going to be a little bit faster than Carter. So it kind of throws everything off. So if Carter's not getting his looks, and I think he came back because of Leary going to be the quarterback, and now Leary isn't there anymore. And then I think for him, he was just like, I think it's best to get a change of scenery. And I think so for him too. He's a great dude. His mom's super nice. But sometimes it's like going back to being a fan. It's like, you went there, I went there. It's like we're diehard State fans, but at the end of the day, a lot of these kids didn't grow up diehard State fans.
Sure.
So it's like, we have undevoted loyalty to the school. But at the end of the day, like some of these kids, like, sometimes they have to treat it like a business decision, especially with NIL being out there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think he just thought it was best for him. And hopefully he ends up somewhere that he's going to flourish.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things when I saw he was leaving, I was like, he ain't going to the draft. I knew it was
Really?
going to transfer. Yeah. Like,
Hmm.
cause he hadn't been getting grades for the draft. And
Right.
I'm glad, I'm personally glad for him. If he was going to leave, it was to transfer.
Hmm.
Because I think if he can get in a system, he's built well. He's built like an NFL receiver. So
Yep.
hopefully he can find a system that'll let him be that kind of deal.
Yeah. Absolutely. And one thing too, talking about Devin Carter, talking about his mom a little bit, this is something which, obviously over the last couple of weeks, I unfortunately have not been able to be a part of many episodes just because of the fact that last week I was gone for a week in Mexico, my wedding anniversary, and the week before that I was getting ready for the trip. So I was pretty much just wrapped up with that. But one thing that kind of happened when the Devin Carter announcement came was there was some pushback. I know even one of our own, Mackenzie as well, made vocal about, basically giving the players opportunity to make their own announcements. And, the one thing I just wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about it, just because I wanted to kind of get out my thoughts, but also to kind of talk to you since you do obviously have a, relationship with Inside Pack Sports. That my thoughts on obviously giving the players the ability to make announcements is it's 100% be in their hands for sure. At the end of the day, if they want to transfer, if they are committing, whether it's high school recruits, whether it's they're going to the draft, wherever it may be, at the end of the day, it should be their their ability to be the one to break the news. Simple as that. I think that's respect for sure. The one issue which I had, which is why I kind of say, well, at the end of the day, I don't really blame too much about the other contributors for kind of starting to leak out the news first about him transferring, is because of the fact that his name was literally in the transfer portal list before he made the announcement that he was transferring. So then it's just then it's public knowledge. So then it's just, well, okay, well, I'm not going to sit here because I mean, obviously, whether since I Pack Sports, Wolfpack, or Pack Pride, or whatever, they can't just say, well, I'm going to sit here while all these other national media tweet out that our player is transferring when it's public knowledge. As simple as that. So that's where I kind of have the issues that like if Carter wants to make that announcement himself, it has to happen before it goes public, but I mean, once it goes public, then it's like, well, it's my job. I have to do that. And I can't just sit here waiting going, are you going to make an announcement? Because, what if he doesn't make an announcement? Maybe he doesn't want to make an announcement. I don't know. And I can't, we can't pick up the phone, keep calling Devin and be like, hey, are you going to make an announcement? So that's kind of where my thoughts are on it. But I understand that 95% of the time where you don't have that, because obviously with commitments, you don't really have you don't have a commitment list like you do with the transfer portal. So it's kind of a different situation, but 95% of the time, I 100% agree that you got to respect that should be players or recruits make the announcement first. Simple as that. But want to kind of get your thoughts on that too, Ryan.
Yeah. So a good example of something that happened recently too, with the transfer was Claude Larkins. Nothing was put out about it. But then you had sites posting about him leaving, and we were trying to get confirmation on our side. We couldn't get it. Like no one knew. And I'm like, so how is this out here? And then they said he ended up withdrawing from the portal,
Right.
but like no one could ever validate that it was confirmed.
In the first place,
so
right?
It's just kind of weird. And I think a lot, I think with the Carter one, Doran came out and said he was declaring for the draft, whatever. And honest to God, I think what it was is Dorn was like, I'm not playing this game of waiting around. He was like, you're either in or you're out. And I think he got asked that question and he just answered it. He answered it truthfully. And now, obviously, I think it was one of the things where I think DC should have announced himself. But I think it was obviously decided long before that. But Dorn basically had this motto is like, once you're in the portal, once you're gone kind of deal,
right.
Which is weird for me, the Larkins, because he came back. But I think an issue too is that this transfer portal is a big driver for a lot of views and visits for pages. And you get these top analysts like Pete Thamel and people like that, they don't care about the players. They don't care at all. All they care about is that they get drives and clicks to their pages, to their posts. So they're going to be first regardless of what it's going to be.
Yep.
And I know, I think Mackenzie, she was mad at, or was not mad, but, saying something to Corey about it at Pack Prod. But it's like you said, I mean, if it's out there, it's like if you're a reporting agency, you got to say it. And it's not to be the one to break the news, but it's like, someone may follow IPS that doesn't follow Pack Prod and vice versa. So it's like,
Sure.
they're going to get the news from somewhere kind of deal.
Yeah.
Now, if they were the first to post it without his permission, that's a different story. But yeah. I think it's like once it got out there, it is what it is. I mean, it wasn't a thing of trying to be first to it. Dorn said it first, and I think he was just like, I'm getting it out there. I'm not sitting around for your post kind of deal. Yeah. But I mean, I agree. I think the players should say it first. And it's like, obviously, we hear what stuff is going to happen long before it's ever posted, but it's like, as a reporting like group, you have to have some kind of self-respect or, respect for these guys that are making the announcements. And I think in this case, Dorn was just like, you're gone.
Yeah.
And then all the agencies followed suit with just saying like, hey, this is what happened kind of deal.
Right. No, absolutely. And again, so basically, I guess kind of where we're at is basically like, we get everybody's point. Like, basically Corey came out and basically said, like, it's on the transfer portal list. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, which, hey, completely get that. I completely get that 100%. I understand Mackenzie's side where it's basically like, she's basically saying like, the players should make the decision. I think we're all in agreement, for that, in terms of when he wants to make a decision. And because, I mean, it was honestly a weird thing when Pete Thamel made the announcement that Devin was transferring. And then you're basically waiting a day or two, whatever it was, for him for Devin to officially come out with his post or whatever. And it's like, it definitely kind of made it a different feel for sure when it happened that way. But it is what it is with that. But one other thing which I wanted to talk about as well is obviously talking about transfers, talking about Brennan Armstrong a little bit. I know this is definitely a big thing for me for sure, because I've been pretty hot and heavy that basically my thoughts are this with Brennan Armstrong, because I know everybody's saying, well, if we bring in Brennan Armstrong, that means MJ's leaving, right? And I would say no. If Brennan Armstrong comes, it's going to be because Dorn and MJ agree that this is the best solution for not only MJ, but for NC State in general. Because this was my thought, that if MJ agrees to it, that MJ can redshirt next season. He can develop. He can learn the new offense. He can grow some muscle, develop as a quarterback in general. He can learn from Brennan Armstrong himself. And then Brennan Armstrong's gone, and then MJ can run the offense for 2 or 3 years and be even more impressive than he was last year. And with an offense that has been proven to make talent look obviously a lot better than maybe they actually are. And again, that's not a knock against Brennan Armstrong. I'm just saying that, hey, if you look at 2021 compared to this year, and it's night and day, simple as that. And the only difference is an A. That's the only difference, or sorry, an I. So that's kind of my thought. And so, but at the end of the day, if MJ says, I don't want to sit, I don't want to redshirt, I want to play, then Doran's not going to say, okay, well, bye, MJ, I'm going to bring in Brennan Armstrong for one season. No, he's not going to do that, because then if he would have said that, then I think he would have fought more to hold on to Leary. Because I think that when Leary left, that pretty much showed that MJ is our future, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he has to be our future starter next year. And I say this to a lot of State fans, saying, I think that is the best case for us. If MJ can agree to it and agree to learn and develop, and let Brennan Armstrong come in next year and kill it, because he already knows that playbook inside and out without even blinking an eye. Start next year, you're going, man, like if MJ was starting quarterback next year, there's a lot of question marks. Like, well, can he pick it up? Is it going to be the best fit for him? I don't know. But if Brennan Armstrong comes in, he is going to be successful with it. He's going to kill it. So
yeah, that's the thing, man. It's like, I tweeted it too when I think it was when Leary officially left. I was like, this is the beginning of the Morris era. And at the time, that looks like the direction it was going in. But sometimes, that's not always what what it is, what it needs
Mm-hmm.
to be. So Beck's leaving. There goes Morris's offense that he knows.
Mm-hmm.
Then you bring in a Nye. That's the offense that Armstrong knows. Morris doesn't know it, but you're bringing in a guy that Morris can directly learn under. But it's like one of those things. It's like, to us, Morris looks completely bought in. So it's like, can you convince him to wait one more year, learn from Armstrong like he did Leary, and then he'll be your guy for 2-3 years?
Mm-hmm.
Because the reality is, man, it's like, to us, he beat Virginia Tech, Wake Forest,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like he looked good in the beginning against Boston College,
Mm-hmm.
but at the end of the day, he's still a really raw quarterback.
Really
Uh,
raw.
yeah, so it's like, the extra year would give him a chance, but it's like, and this too, you need like 4 quarterbacks on a roster.
Right.
Leary's gone, Zoe Wallace is gone, Chambers is going to be gone. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to have Morris and Finley. Look what happened this year. We got all the way down to our 4th string quarterback. We have 2 quarterbacks that are basically on the roster.
Right.
Harvey's there, but he's a walk-on, so it's not like he's a
Yeah.
scholarship guy or he's going to come in and be like what Finley was against UNC.
Yeah.
Give me Brennan Armstrong any day of the week. That dude,
Mm-hmm.
he's on the ball. He knows the offense. You have his offensive line coach. Like, give me him. You're going to
Absolutely.
bring in Collins from Clemson. Now, I'll be interested
Dude,
too if they
that's
can get another receiver in.
I think you need to.
Because to me personally, I think you need Collins on the outside, and you need to bring in another outside guy. Move
Mm-hmm.
Lassane back to the slot to fill in for Thayer, because I think he's more of a slot receiver than an outside guy.
Yeah.
So you can have him on the inside, and then the offense looks completely different. But
Right.
I think it's one of those tough things because it's like you're going to have to convince Morris to take a step back for another year.
Yeah.
But he's going to be the next man up regardless. But
Yeah.
you have to get a quarterback. Like,
Yep.
it's easy to be like, I want Morris to be the guy. But regardless of how you look at it, you got to have more quarterbacks on the roster. And if I can get a dude who was basically like leading the nation in offense, who can
First round draft pick.
yeah, give me him any day of the week if you can get him.
Absolutely. And again, not to, because again, that's the thing is that if I'm pitching this to MJ, I'm saying you are not losing your job. That is not what this is. This is not you saying I'm bringing in somebody else who's better than you and you are losing your job. That is not what this is. This is simply that next year will be tough for him anyway. Why? Because there's all this expectations on him. There's all these, just putting our weight saying if we are going to be successful, it is going to have to be because MJ Morris. Simple as that. We are basically saying you don't have to worry about that anymore, on top of having to learn a new offense. And we're saying take a step back, learn the offense, learn from Brandon Armstrong, grow as a quarterback, grow some muscle because he definitely needs that for sure if he wants to have longevity in the ACC and then if he wants any kind of NFL career for sure. And you're going to be killing it for 2 or 3 years. You're going to kill it, and then you're going to go pro and join QBU. Like simple as that. Like that's what's going to happen. So because Lynn brings out saying that MJ is not redshirting. He has to bring in the best available to compete. The first thing I'll say to MJ too is don't stop competing either. Hey, at the end of the day, if you can somehow beat out Brandon Armstrong, hey, hats off to you. Now, I mean, obviously Brandon Armstrong's not going to come here unless he is a starter.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I mean, if we know Doran well enough, we know that he's not guaranteeing anybody anything. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, he say, hey, yeah, I mean, you're going to come here and you're going to be a starting quarterback. But at the end of the day, hey, if MJ Morris turns out to be the better guy, or if he turns out to be just as good as Brandon Armstrong, but 3 years younger, of course he's going to go with MJ. But just like you said, he's very raw. He's learning new offense. So more than likely, that's not going to happen. But again, it all comes down to if MJ agrees to it. I think Brandon Armstrong wants to come. I don't think there's a doubt in my mind, Brandon Armstrong, because why would he want to go to somebody else? Why? And when he has an opportunity to come and play under an eye who he was a first round draft pick with, if in my opinion, why wouldn't Brandon Armstrong want to come?
Yeah, and I think it's gonna, to me, I think it's one of those things where I think what would keep Armstrong from coming is if he doesn't think he has the receivers. if he doesn't feel like he has the options to pass the ball around to get to the next level, I think that could be the part that holds him back, which is why I could see us going after someone else in the transfer portal at the receiver.
Yes.
Because it's like, to us, we think, Collins is going to be great. And then we have Gray, Timmons, Smith. But it's like, I feel like you need to get another dynamic guy on the outside to kind of just seal the deal with him.
I mean, especially since Dorn, I mean, there's no doubt Dorn has some kind of magic juice when it comes to transfer portal, because everybody he's brought in from the beginning of transfer portal times, he's killed with. Going back to Corey Durden, going, to Cyrus Fagan this year. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he every single guy he brings in is like, dude, that was a great pickup. So, and there's so many options out there. Like, that's the thing. I mean, this is by far the biggest transfer portal class there ever has been, and there's lots of options. Go get one. Hey, if they're sitting there ready, why not bring them in? I mean,
anything to get Gaston from Syracuse. Now, I haven't heard anything about it, but God, I would love to have him. That dude is a beast.
Well, and again, it just goes back to, I mean, I honestly feel for Syracuse, because I think like Dino Babers, he's once again the same spot he was almost back in 2018, where he had a really great season. So I think he's, going to last for at least another year or two. But I mean, definitely losing an eye is definitely a huge hit for him for sure. Because obviously, I mean, he turned Garrett Schrader from a running back who also could throw the ball a little bit to a guy who could actually, man, like that dude is a really good quarterback all of a sudden too. So,
but it's funny you mentioned that, because to me, I feel like Dorn was in that a similar kind of boat. We had Drinkwitz left. I mean, hell, he's the head coach of Missouri. Right. You had Matt Canada leave. He's coaching the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I think at the time, a lot of people saw NC State as like a stepping stone, and I think they see that with Syracuse. But now it's like, I think Beck was going to be gone regardless if he left or not. But now you got Gibson locked down, right? So it's like now, and you kept all your assistants. I think, White, he left a year or two ago or last year. But for the most part, you're keeping all your assistants. You had Garrison leave. But you backfilled him with a dude that's just as good. I mean, you had, I think, even our D-line coach, he went on to coach at the Saints.
Ryan Nielsen, dude. Nielsen, he's one of my favorites ever.
Yeah, so it's like, State had that same kind of issue where it was just a revolving door for coaches. But thankfully, recently, we've been able to keep our main guys, Goebel and all those, pieces in between. And I think, which is good, because it's helped a lot with recruiting, and not just recruiting, but player retention, keeping the guys there. So, I mean, I feel sorry for Babers, but I'm glad, for the most part, we're past that era in football.
Yeah, no. Oh, and again, it just comes back to, I mean, I really do have I really am a fan of Dino as a person. I mean, that dude is a stand-up guy for sure. And like, watching, him, his post-game celebrations after they beat like Virginia Tech, they pulled off the upset against Virginia Tech after they beat Clemson. Like, that dude's awesome. Like, you can't not love Dino Babers, simple as that. So, but I think D-Rip says it best, saying, with an eye here, we now definitely need to bring in at least one more big time wide receiver, and the options are out there. So I feel like if we know Doran well enough that if he feels that there is a need, then he's going to go get it. Simple as that. He's not the Kevin Keats where, last year he goes all in on one center, and then unfortunately that comes back to bite him. Like, he knows it's, I mean, especially now that he played a season where he played his 4-string quarterback, like, he has learned a lesson from now on. If he didn't know that lesson already, he now knows that at the end of the day, I'm going to get as much talent as I possibly can shove into this locker room, because unfortunately we may need it. We may need every single bit of it. So, simple as that. But, but they also bring in, talk, we didn't even mention about Lex Thomas either. Like, I'm excited about Lex Thomas. I especially, I mean, even if we get 2/3 of what we got with Thayer Thomas and Drake Thomas, I mean, Lex Thomas is going to be a really good quarterback. Simple as that. I mean, if we get 2/3 of what we got from either of the other brothers, that's my thoughts on it. Like, I don't know what the Thomas parents fed them growing up, but they need to sell it. Simple as that, because man, they created ballers
Yeah,
ballers on all
I
levels.
think the biggest thing with them, man, is they just buy in. Thayer comes in as a walk on, and then he turns into a great dude that possibly has a chance in the NFL. I mean, he's a Patriots receiver for sure. But
Yeah.
he developed well. Drake developed extremely well. So it's like there's just so much potential there. It's like if he buys in and develops like his brothers did, then you just never know.
Right.
Because Drake and Thayer, they both came in raw. I mean, Thayer
Mhm.
he was, like I said, he was a walk on, and then Drake was like, I think, a 3-star.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then they developed into what you could practically say is a 5-star.
Right.
So it's like, the potential is always there. So, I mean, it'll be
Sure.
interesting to see, where
Yeah.
he's at in 3 to 4 years.
Yeah. And Lynn asked a question too, talking about anyone know of any transfers after the bowl game. And I mean,
Yeah.
I think on go ahead.
I was gonna say something on that too. I wouldn't expect any news, or I wouldn't have expected any news between like the holidays and the bowl game.
Yeah.
I think there will be some more exits after the bowl game. And I think it's just because guys want to stick it out. I don't think it's going to be anyone big. But at the same time, it could be a thing where they're also waiting to announce news of other people coming in.
Hmm.
But I think right now they just want to stay focused on the bowl game. And I think
Yeah.
even if dudes have said, "Hey, I want to transfer," then they're just like, just hold it out until after the bowl game, kind of deal. I think
Yeah.
we won't see anything until probably next week after the new year.
Because I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if maybe Brandon's already told Doran that I am coming, but maybe they're waiting, just like you said, until after the bowl game, so it doesn't distract anything or anything like that as well. Wouldn't be surprised. So we'll wait and see. But also too, I mean, I'd have to look at the scholarship numbers, but I wouldn't be surprised either with the amount of signees that we have coming in compared to us also having only 4 or 5 players in the transfer portal that we almost have to, kind of cut a couple people in order to meet scholarship numbers as well.
Well,
So
that was the issue last year. I mean, they couldn't get dudes to leave. They
I know. I know.
Pavilion was the other dude. I don't know why his name just popped in my head. He was the other dude who's also transferred. He was the first one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're at like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But they couldn't get dudes to leave last year. And that's why
Mhm.
they couldn't take full advantage of the transfer portal. They took a smaller than usual class. So then, everyone saw, oh, state's recruiting class is what, 9th or 10th in the ACC, but you didn't have the numbers because you had all
Right.
the COVID guys still there.
Right.
And so that's the thing, is like, you got to take now the recruiting classes with a grain of salt, the rankings, because I can get, if I have 25 scholarships, I can take 15 guys out of high school, but I can take 10 transfers.
Right.
Whereas the transfers, they're ready to go right away, at least in most cases. Um, so, I mean, I don't think it'll be as much as the issue this year with scholarships, because you are going to have like a bunch of dudes leaving. Like Pitts has to leave, Engel has to leave, Fagan has to leave. Whereas last year they should have left, but they all got to come back because of COVID, kind of deal.
Right.
So,
Right. Yep. No, again, it just goes back to, at the end of the day, it's a program that people love to be around. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to happen, like one thing right now, like, obviously you could talk about UNC and talk about, how they lost 7 defensive backs alone.
crazy.
You could talk about Clemson, where, I mean, we're bringing, one of their, not star, but one of their bigger wide receivers. And it seems like that, a lot of people are, kind of working their way out as well. It's just, unfortunately, it's the name of the game right now. It's a wild, wild west right now. And I want to kind of talk a little bit about that as well. One thing which I've heard recently is that apparently Devin Leary was offered, well over $750,000 to go to Kentucky. And, obviously we knew when he went to Kentucky, we were like, well, okay, it's basically the same level of football program, eliteness. Like it's not like he's going to go play for Notre Dame. He's going to play for Kentucky, which, you can make an argument that in terms of the national, stage, that NC State, Kentucky are right there in the same boat. So it's obviously not that he's trying to play in front of bigger, and it's obviously not that he's trying to necessarily play for a championship either. Because, I mean, just looking at Kentucky without Will Levis, I mean, Kentucky was a completely different team without Will, for sure. So it just has to be more of that. Obviously, with us, we were looking to move on to MJ, combined with NIL opportunity. That to me just screamed those are the two reasons. Same thing with number 47 leaving baseball for LSU. It's like, okay, you were going because of the money. Simple as that.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why you could have left. That's the only reason why you went there. Same thing with Kentucky. It's like, okay, like kind of, crossing off the possible options, money has something to do with it. So, right now, the way the transfer portal NIL is, it's just a matter of time till things, I think, have to change. Because I mean, for me, I'm not really a fan of going into an offseason and wondering what the heck is my football team going to look like next season? Because who knows? Who the heck knows? I mean, like every fan right now, you're just like you're just sitting back and you're just looking at the computer screen going, all right, what happens? Who leaves? Who's coming in? Who's declaring for the draft? Like, who's committing? I mean, you had one recruit who picked Oregon, Oklahoma, and somebody else with they committed to 3 different teams in 2 days.
Yep.
And so I mean it's craziness right now. It's bonkers. It can't last, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is there's little to no regulations. I mean, obviously there's some rules in place, but we were going back and when we were talking about Harmon, where you have guys like in his ear being like, "Hey, you're a third, fourth, fifth round pick." I think what is going on is you got dudes in these players' ears like, "Hey, you could get more money elsewhere. Why don't you go out there and look? Here's your quote unquote NIL value based off of on 3 or whatever the crap it is. Why don't you go out there and look what's out there?" So here's the issue. You get guys that are leaving perfect situations where they could possibly make it to the league where they're at, but they look out, they get people in their ear like, "Hey, you could make more money elsewhere." So then they go into the portal, and then sometimes that opportunity doesn't always come. Or they settle, they get that money, and then they're in a crappy situation. And I mean, I wouldn't wish that on anyone, but that's going to be the reality for a lot of these kids in NIL. Is like you may still get that NIL money, but then you lose your chance at making it to the next level because you could fall behind. Whereas, you've been out of school for 3-4 years, whatever it may be, you have the coaches on your side. You could possibly be a starter with a direct route to the NFL or whatever. And then you go and you think, "Oh, I can transfer to a bigger school like LSU, Alabama. I can get national recognition." And then you fall down the depth chart and you're like, "Holy crap, I lost out on a big opportunity because someone said I can make more money here."
Yeah. Well, and like Patrick Hall brings up Josh Harris, why did he leave? And that's honestly because I know Tom Lavolsi, kind of put out a tweet basically saying that, that he thinks that there was an agent that, the agents, are a big thing now saying, and maybe somebody was getting Josh saying, "Hey, listen, you could go to," who did he go to? Oregon? Ole Miss. Yeah. Like, maybe like, you can go to Ole Miss and you can make a killer amount of money. But I mean, with CJ Clark leaving after the season, I mean, it was pretty much set up that he was going to be,
Clark could be back. I think Clark's going to be the starter. I think it was a two-way street. I think Josh could have been told like, "Hey, Clark's going to be our dude." And I think he should be. I mean, Harris was good. But if you let me choose between him and Clark, it's going to be Clark. And if I'm not, I know Harris has one baby. I'm not sure if he has a second one on the way. I don't know if I remember that correctly. So I mean, to him, I mean, money is huge. I mean, it was the same thing with Durden. I mean, Durden has a baby. I can't remember if he has 2 or not, but I mean, like when it comes to those kids, I mean, it's a big thing. And it's like, I was telling you earlier, we work directly with a lot of the NIL stuff and like getting to hear these dudes, stories, their life stories. I mean, they don't always come up from great surroundings, great households. So it's easy to be enticed by a lot of money. It's because like, when you get older, you hear a sort of, a total of money. And you're like, okay, that's a good amount. But it's like, when you go back and think when you were 18, 19, 20, $25,000, $50,000, you're like, "Oh my God, that's a lot of money."
Yeah.
And then at that point, it becomes bigger than the game. And I think that's what's happening to a lot of kids. And, it's like with Josh, I hope it works out. Cause I mean, the dude has a family and everything. I would love to see him stay at State. But what you mentioned with Tom, I think you got a lot of dudes in these ears because the thing is agents don't care about the kids because if those kids go, that agent is getting paid. So, I mean, and It's horrible because it's just taking advantage of a situation. But unfortunately,
What?
they're involved. So
Well, and again, unfortunately, these are young adults. They're
yeah,
borderline kids. Depending on what athlete you're talking about. And again, so you're taking advantage. I mean, like I was talking to. So again, one of my best friends of mine is Deshaun Middleton, former state defensive tackle. We talk all the time. He was in my wedding. I love that dude. And I mean, he tells me like it is, like from the athlete perspective. And the thing which I was talking to him about, because the one example always comes to my head, is the quarterback committed to Miami that is going to be making over $1 million per year at Miami in money. And I'm thinking to myself, going, so you're telling me that a 17/18-year-old kid is getting told that he's going to be making over $1 million playing in college,
it hasn't even played a
playing in
single snap.
he hasn't had played a single snap, but he's literally like when I was a senior in high school. I mean, I was just trying to get into NC State. Like,
Yeah.
I barely knew how to write a check, for a checkbook. And this guy is getting told you're going to make seven figures, playing in college without even playing a single snap. Like that to me, I feel like is a problem more of just because one of the biggest issues in today's environment is, issues with parents, with referees and parents putting pressures on kids. Well, now that 8-year-old kid who's playing Pop Warner, you're telling that kid, hey, within 10 years, you could be making seven figures playing college football. So now, now it makes sense why I'm going to put a little bit more pressure on you, because 10 years is not a long time. And so I need to put more pressure on you now because I need you to get to that level. But, it's just like it used to be, just do what it takes to get to the league. Now it's do what it takes to get to college. Because I mean, forget the academics. Forget the academics. You could be making money. Forget scholarships. You could be making do re mi. Simple as that. That's my thing. Is I think that the way this is right now really pushes away the importance of academics. Pushes away the importance of loyalty. It pushes away the importance of commitment. Like when you say I commit, that means nothing now. That means squad douche now. That means
Well, just look at
nothing.
Cooley. I mean,
Yeah.
Cooley was committed to state. And then the same kind of situation. Maryland scoops in and is like, hey, dude, I can promise you this.
Yeah.
And he flips. I mean, granted, we all saw it coming. Everyone kind of knew it was coming leading up to it.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is like, I didn't trust that any guy was going to sign until I saw it on early signing day that they had signed on the paper. Because you talked about the dude who committed 3 different times in 2 days. Like, it doesn't mean anything anymore. And I think the issue is too, is you talked about parents. I think parents are starting to get involved too with kids, because they're like, hey, you're going to pay him. How about we get some of it too? Right. So I think it was the Georgia quarterback. He's transferred 4 times now. I can't remember his name.
JT Barrett, JT Jarrett. No, not JT Jarrett.
It was something like that. I can't even think of his name.
He's at West Virginia, but he went from USC to Georgia to West Virginia. JT Daniels, that's it.
Yeah.
To West Virginia, and now he's transferring again. It's like,
I think it came out that his dad basically said, we want for their parents X amount of money, and we want a house as part of the NIL. And that's just crazy to me. Like, it's just parents taking advantage of their kids. But I mean, that the issue is like, this is the environment that the NCAA has created. They pushed this out with zero regulation. They were like, we're going to push this out so people are going to start liking us again. And then it has turned into a complete crap show.
Complete crap show, setting up for disaster. In my opinion, you got to get a grip on it quick. Yeah. So real quick, kind of wrap up, because I want to I know we kind of already gone over a little bit of time, but I know you being a big basketball guy, I can't not have you on at least talk like 5 minutes of basketball. But give me a quick score prediction for Maryland, Ryan. What do you got?
For Maryland, oh my God, you can't do that to me. 27-20.
That's I was thinking around like the high 40s, low 50s total score. So I'm thinking like 28-21.
I think it'll be in there. I mean, the thing is like, State has a good defense. Maryland has a fairly good offense. State has a bad offense. Maryland has a bad defense. So,
but also too, I think that is that Maryland has lost plays
Right.
beautifully in NC State's favor. So that's my other thing as well. And on
Just
top of it too, say again.
can't recreate the Louisville game where they ran all over you.
No, can't do that. Yeah, that was a me being there in person. That was a head scratcher for sure. So, but yeah. So talking a little bit about men's basketball. So, what a weird start so far. Again, obviously, you see the potential. God,
Yep.
you see the potential. I mean, dude, to Quavian Smith, like if there was any, like, maybe he might come back a third year. No, 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 no. That dude is going pro. He has done everything that I'm sure every single scout has asked of him in terms of being more of a playmaker, getting other guys involved. He actually leads the ACC in the assists per game right now. Top of being, a scorer as he is. I think that sometimes, obviously, Big T gets in his own way a little bit, where he's still trying to shoot himself out of games. But obviously, the Louisville game was definitely went from oh God to okay, nice. I like that. Nice. But I think overall, I'm still not thrilled with what I saw for sure. That, like, if it was anybody else and we started out like that, we would have dug ourselves in too deep of a hole, I feel like, to get out of it. But what are your thoughts so far in the team? And honestly, for me, because my issue right now is depth. I worry about the depth.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and I was guilty of it too. I think after the Miami game, I was like, "Oh my good, here we go again." I was like, "Here we go again. We're gonna have another season." The
Yep.
reality is we're not. So we already tied, I think, the win total from last year at 11-2, which is ridiculous. But when I was updating the standings for the ACC, our two losses are against Miami, who's number one in the ACC. I think they're ranked number 17, something 13, something like that. And I think Pitt is number 3 at 9-4. So and I'm guilty too. I thought Pitt was not going to be very good. They got a transfer in there, number 22. Can't remember his name, but he was really good. He was an impact dude against State. I think Dusan going down hurt, but I think you have the guard play, including Morcell, and then a couple games with Jack Clark. Like, he had a couple big plays against Louisville. I know people want him to stop shooting threes, but it's one of those things where, to relate it back to football, if you have a fast dude on the outside, you at least have to respect him. Clark can shoot the ball, so you at least have to respect his shot, right?
Right.
Whereas, Ross goes out there, you ain't going to respect his shot. But it's like with Clark, he hits him every once in a while, but he at least stretches the defense. I think Pack Basketball's post with Miranda, the first picture was Miranda. I would say that's a very good hunch that he's going to be playing against Clemson. Now, he probably won't start. He probably won't get a ton of minutes, but he will. I would expect him probably get 10 to 12 minutes, just to kind of get him up to game speed. And I think as we get to like the middle of January, he'll be getting a lot more minutes. I know State fans are kind of upset, like, why are you bringing this dude in? You're not going to play him. The thing is like, physicality in college is different than high school, and the game speed of college is a lot different than high school. People may have their opinions about Duana. But at least he knows the game speed. Now, he may be a foul machine, whatever. He has his plays, but you just can't throw Miranda into the fire like that.
No.
But I think the good thing is we've been getting a lot more minutes from Burns than we expected. He's been fairly okay with foul trouble. He's had his games here and there where he's been in foul trouble. But I think Louisville, he played for the majority of the game, if I'm not mistaken. I think the team's fine. I think LJ Thomas has come around pretty well. I think the biggest key, you got to start getting some kind of scoring from Pass and Ross. They come into the game and you're not getting much.
Yeah.
It's really,
what's going on there is Ross. Golly.
Yeah.
I
think he's being forced into a role that's not him. I think he's playing more as like a hybrid, like Clark, when he should be just a 4. But he can't be a stretch 4 because he can't really shoot. So it's like you solely need him to be out there to get blocks, rebounds, and set screens. But it's like, to him, he wants to make plays. So I think he's stuck in kind of a weird spot. And I think Adam Miranda would kind of, help, divvy out the minutes a little bit. But I still think the biggest thing has been bench scoring, because you can't just rely on your starters to get everything. Because you saw what happened when Joyner and Clark went 0 of 20, 0 of 27, whatever it was against Pitt. I mean, you got to have something else. But I mean, I think they'll be fine. They'll probably get 2022 wins, which is good. And that's including the tournament. And I think they'll make the tournament, assuming people stay healthy. Hopefully Mahorchik can come back. It's possible, believe it or not. So we'll see. I mean, there's nothing official on that.
Well, because my thing too, and because like when I saw indefinitely, I pretty much took that as okay, he's out. Because I mean, for me, if he had a real chance of coming back, they would have said he's going to be out 2 to 3 months or something like that. But the fact they use the word indefinitely told me not good things. But again, that just means for an unset amount of time. So which I get that as well.
Yeah, and I think it's the nature of the injury. He had, I think it was basically the exact same injury at Utah, and he around the exact same time of the year, and he came back middle of January. So I mean, depending on how he's healing, I think he was able to like really start the rehab process this week. So depending on how that goes, I mean, it's possible he could be back. Late January, early February.
Now, the two things which I want to kind of talk about before we wrap this up here, Ryan, is so first of all, after the Miami game, the one biggest issue I had was, believe it or not, actually the coaching late in the game, just because of the fact that that last couple minutes was like, I would have rather stuck a knife in my eyeballs than to watch that, because I literally was like, we have no idea what we're doing. We have zero clue what the heck is going on right now. We have no idea. Like, wait, so like this is a basketball? Like that's basically what it looked like. And I'm not even over exaggerating it. Like, you're being dramatic. No, that is literally what it looked like. Simple as that. I mean, the fact that Big T missed all 3 free throws, even on top of it, it's like we didn't know what we were doing, and we daggone sure weren't playing like we knew what we were doing either. So it just goes back to, like, again, Keats, you're not helping the K's, man. Don't do this, man. Like, I want you to be successful. Like, I want more than anything for Keats to make the tournament and prove the haters wrong. But I look at that and I go, man, that is not a good look. That is not a good look whatsoever.
Man, I think is a thing too, and I think you see it in Terquavian's demeanor when it comes to shooting. I think Keats has a lot of trust in his guys. So when Smith is off, people are like, "Oh, take Smith out of the game." But like, I mean, like from a basketball standpoint, shoot or shoot, and that's the only way they're going to get out of being cold is to make shots. And I think Keats has that same kind of demeanor about his team. Is like, look, I trust you guys to get out of your slump. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. I will say the one time this season so far that's really bothered me, and it's hindsight 2020, we were talking about earlier, was in the Pitt game. I think Smith had 4 fouls. He went out at like the 8, 7, 6 minute mark, something like that. We went on the run to cut it to like 6 or 7 points. And instead of bringing Smith in, he continued to sit him. And we cut it down to 5, 6, whatever it was, with 4 or 5 minutes left. Smith sat until 2 minutes. By the time 2 minutes came in, game over. That was like the biggest issue I've had so far this year coaching. I think offensive wise, the offense has been a lot better. Now, granted, if you had games like Pitt where we just missed everything, that's not on Keats. I don't care. Like I like Keats. He's a great dude. I want him to win. And I've had my fair shares of being upset with him. But that Pitt game is not one to be upset because dudes were just missing open shots. I mean, Keats can't go out there and make it. He can't shoot the ball and make it. He can only get his dudes in positions. Which is why we always rag on offensive coordinators, because you got to get your dudes in positions. But at the end of the day, it comes down to players executing when you get them into open positions. But yeah, I mean, all this talk will mean nothing if we go out and lose to Clemson, go out and lose to Duke. But those are 2 games that I think we could win, and I think it would be good momentum heading into the deep stretch of the ACC. So I think it'd be a good game for state fans to go to, because it's right after the bowl game. It's 4:30 on Friday, right after the bowl game, and I think Clemson's 45 minutes to an hour away, if that, from Charlotte. So
that's a good point. Yeah. No, and again, I think that it's vital that Keats gets some momentum, not only just for his team, but also too, even from the fan base as well. Like, just you kind of had a little bit of juice going, from the Invitational, obviously beating Butler, beating
Davidson.
Rutgers.
Davidson.
And beating Davidson. That's what it is. Dean Davidson, playing hand in hand with Kansas, but then you lose, to Pitt, and then you lose to Miami. So then it's like, okay, maybe not so much, but I think just getting that juice. But really, when it all comes down to it, Ryan, because I know that, whenever somebody talks about, letting go of Keats, the one glaring thing that always gets brought up is the contract. And, obviously the fact that, there's still a good bit amount of money left on his contract that we would have to pay out to him. But I want to kind of ask you this. First of all, do you think that is an option for Boo this year to let go of Keats if it gets to a certain point? And then B, is there a line in your head? Like for me, it's basically, I need you to make the tournament. I think that we should be looking way past having a goal of making the NCAA tournament. Like to me, the NCAA tournament should be a byproduct, not a goal for a program with the history and the money and tradition that it does. Simple as that. But I mean, so I know that's kind of a loaded question, Ryan, but I just don't see if we don't make the tournament, I just can't wrap my head around like being like, okay, maybe next year when you have young guys like Hubert Davis and John Shire now starting to gain momentum. Like if he's not a guy, we just got to bite the bullet at some point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things like you were mentioning is like you don't make the tournament. Like if State were to lose first round of the ACC, you miss out on the tournament because the thing is like they put together this roster. Like Keats puts his roster together to win now. And if you don't win now, and I think we have good guys, then it's like, okay, I think Keats is the issue kind of deal. And I know for a fact, just from the things I've heard in the interactions, is that Keats has completely changed his demeanor in coaching, which is good. I don't know. I think we talked about this before, and Doran has done the same thing. And Doran, changed his demeanor, and then the football program completely switched. And Keats has done it this year. But it's like at some point you got to win. You put this team together to win. But at the same time, I think it's one of the hardest coaching tenures to critique or criticize because there's so many things that have happened in his time that wouldn't normally happen with other coaches. Being under investigation for 2, 3, 4 years. You've had guys like LeCue, Hall, Dillingham all decommit or go to the NBA. You had Sadiq Bey, who's been killing it in the NBA. He left. We had that dude from Kentucky, Killia Jones, who just sat on the bench, didn't even play. Then he went overseas.
And they had COVID.
Yeah, and it's like and we could have made the tournament, or we should have made the tournament where that COVID year happened, because I think we had like 2021 wins, something like that.
And we got screwed out of, and you could argue if we did, but my opinion, we got screwed out of going to NIT instead of when I think we should have made the tournament. So back in 2018 or whatever it was. So yeah,
it was when we played Northern Iowa or something like that, right?
Yeah, you got it.
Second game.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's one of those things. It's so hard to critique, and it's like basketball. As a fan, it's easy to watch and critique because you can see every little thing because it's so condensed. Whereas football, you're only watching where the football is. You're not seeing everything around.
Right.
So it's so easy as a fan to be like, hey, I don't like this guy because you can see it right in front of you. You can see everything happening. So I mean, it's tough, and I hate it too because I've tried to go to every single home game. I think I missed one for a work dinner. And it's tough being there and seeing there's no one there. And people rag on, oh, it's the PNC. But the thing is tickets are affordable. You can get them. And the PNC is a great venue.
It's a great venue.
And I don't think it should be a thing of where we're only there for Duke and UNC. No. But I don't know. I think this team will make the tournament. But like you were saying, there has to be a line and there has to be a minimum. And that minimum should be the tournament based off of the history of State. And I still think that 83 was the best and worst thing to happen to State basketball because it set the standard so high. And now it's set the expectations so high. And even when we have a bad year, you're like, oh, we can win it all because of 83. Right. And I think it's tough for coaches because they have to live up to that, that great victory. But as fans, it's like you should expect to win. You should expect greatness, especially when you're paying them millions of dollars.
Absolutely.
So you have to have that baseline. And I think if State doesn't make the tournament, they lose first round, then Keats is gone.
Yeah.
I think Boo, he's been good about funding and supporting.
Yep.
And he would be able to find the money.
Yeah.
But I think they'll make the tournament.
Yeah.
But who
Yeah.
knows?
No, I agree. And I think at the end, and because the one thing too, because I know Boo came in pretty much from the get-go and said, we are going to commit to football and men's basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And he obviously has done that with, because we didn't even talk about it, but definitely not going to spend any more time on that, but talking about Tony Gibson getting paid and how that I think was a huge statement, basically by Doran and Boo saying, we are going to be an AC championship football team. We are going to be a national contending football team. And I think with men's basketball, yeah, exactly. So, I think with men's basketball, Boo is saying we're going to head that direction, whether it's Keats being the guy or not. We are going to be an AC contending team. We're going to head that direction. And so at the end of the day, just like you said, with the frustration from the fans, which you can obviously see with the attendance, which has been, frustrating for sure, on top of the fact that this team is talented enough. You look at this team without any coaches, you look at Big T, you look at Casey Morsell, what he's done this year, you look at DJ Burns, what he's done, you go, that is an NCAA tournament team. Simple as that. You give me a solid coach, that is an NCAA tournament team. So to me, I 100% agree. The opportunities are there this season. If you don't make the tournament, which, I know is getting a little bit harder just because definitely the ACC is definitely not as good this year as it typically has been, for sure. But at the end of the day, you got to find a way to make it happen. You need to find a way to get a couple of big wins, at home or on the road, whatever it may be in the ACC, or else we need to move on. As simple as that. At some point, you have to just bite the bullet and realize at the end of the day, we have a young Hubert Davis and a young John Shire who are rebuilding. So at the end of the day, if we have to rebuild with them with a young coach of our own, then so be it. That's what we got to do.
Well, that's the thing, man, is they brought Keats in because they knew Roy was going to retire. They knew Coach K was going to retire.
Right.
And Wake Forest, they're just out there, so they're not really involved in the triangle.
Yeah, no.
But they brought Keats in because he was supposed to be the guy when Roy and Coach K retired.
Take over. Right.
Yeah. And, having all the momentum and recruiting was supposed to be now. And it's like, I think you're like you mentioned it. These guys are starting to take over. It was this Shire's first year, and then Hubert Davis is like his second year.
His second year.
Yeah. So it's like, you got to win, and you got to beat Duke. You got to beat UNC. You can't keep splitting series or going a year here and there.
And on top of it too, Greg mentioned this many times, but basketball is not like football, where basketball, you have 11 offensive, 11 defensive, you have special teams, like you have all these guys. Basketball, if you can have a nucleus of 5 really good basketball players, you could turn any program around. I mean, look at Baylor. Like, you can turn around first season. Like as crazy as to believe, if we were to let go of Keats this season and we brought in a new guy next season, next year, that coach's first year could be a really good season. It's not just because, Keats leaves, you're going to have all these people transfer out, you're going to lose the recruits, like we're going to have a bad season. No, in basketball, you can switch around any program just like that. Boom.
Well, and that's why they have a 64-team tournament, because the reality is in basketball, anyone can win. If they didn't believe that, they wouldn't have a 64-team tournament.
No.
And like you said, where like Greg has mentioned, it's not like football where, it was a 4-team playoff and now they're expanding it. But it's like it's a whole different game. And especially with how we were talking about the transfer portal, NIL, all that before, it's easier to bring in basketball dudes when it's a 5-man starting team and usually 3-man rotation, as opposed, that doesn't even make up a full offense. That's 8 dudes for basketball, whereas you got 11 on offense. So it'll be a lot easier to turn around. I don't think it'll be an end-all be-all. You look at the roster, you're going to lose 6 guys after this year. 6 starters, basically. So it's going to be a rebuild regardless.
Either way, yep.
Well, virtually, possibly 7, because Miranda, they think he's going to leave. So,
and maybe again, and it's kind of funny. All the frustrations we had for years with men's basketball, with players, kind of coming but considering going pro, committing, not committing, like all that. All those issues are now happening in football now too, as frustrating as believed. So. Awesome, Ryan. Well, again, I appreciate you. I know we have gone over for sure, but definitely, obviously so much to talk about there from the football side. And definitely, I mean, I can't let you go without talking basketball, for sure. So I appreciate you.
Forever, man.
You hanging out, man. But thank you all so much for tuning in as well. We appreciate D Roop as well. Talking about how this team should make the tournament. No reason why we can't finish 4th or 5th in the ACC. Hey, with the ACC how it is this year, that's, believe it or not, that's definitely not out of the realm of possibility for sure. So appreciate all y'all tuning in. Greg, if you're still on the way to Charlotte, hope the trip's being safe so far to you. And but again, thank you all so much. I know Ryan and I will be at the bowl game. I'm headed down tomorrow night, so if I run into you, if you guys see me, make sure to stop me and say hey. We'd love to chat with you. Say hey, and same thing with Ryan as well. And thank you all so much again for tuning in. And just a reminder, if you haven't already, again, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. And also, too, if you haven't checked out our two-parter with Shaheen Battle has gone live this evening. So if you've not checked out both those episodes yet, make sure to do that right now before you even log off, or even tomorrow. Make sure to check that out first and foremost. Ryan, what's going on with the IPS side, my man? Anything you need to plug? You want to plug in here? What's going on with the IPS side?
Yeah, we recently just rolled out a varsity level on our website. It's basically like first to the information kind of deal. So it's basically all the things that would have gotten posted once it was actually verified, but now it's like even stuff that is rumored. So you could get a day or two early to it, which is pretty cool. And we're still rolling out the Elite Plus stuff to help lead direct or fund NIL. And if you haven't, I suggest supporting the NIL collective at State with the Pack of Wolves. They do great things. They've made great strides in supporting our student athletes. And we actually had a feature, I was mentioning with Leighton, with Casey Morsell, where we helped him out, and it was part of Pack of Wolves and working out with them. So it's definitely something worth checking out.
Yep. No, absolutely. And yeah, I can't stress enough as well, checking out the Pack of Wolves collective. Great team, great crew, and definitely it's, I just can't stress enough as well. Everything we're talking about with money, get involved. If you haven't already got involved with the Wolfpack Club, with the Pack of Wolves, I know Pack of Wolves, you could buy an annual membership for like $200 for a full year. And then Wolfpack Club, it's like, I don't know, like $50, $100, something like that for a year. Like, it's really cheap as well. So, I mean, you're talking, 350 to, $250, $350 for a full year of supporting Wolfpack Club and Pack of Wolves. And so definitely, make sure to check both of those out for sure. I know we've had on Ben Broussard, the head of Wolfpack Club, and he said, hey, even if you come to me and say, hey, I'll give you $20 a year, he'll take it, guaranteed. I guarantee you he will take it. He will not shy you away. So, but thank you all so much for tuning in. Really appreciate you tuning in last minute. We will see you all in Charlotte, North Carolina for the bowl game. Go Pack, beat Maryland. We'll see y'all soon, baby. Go Pack.